my name is Lexi. I'm a trust and safety engineer at GitHub. I am a dog enthusiast, as Jim said, and I am a woman on the internet. My pronouns are she or they. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about trust and safety engineering, which is the way my team reviews and builds software. By the end of this presentation, I hope to have sown all of these thoughts into your head so that the next time you're building something or reviewing something that someone else has built, you too can consider it with user trust and safety in mind. Trust and safety. Yep. I actually had the same slide duplicated. That was on purpose. So if this is you right now, this is my manager's dog. His name is Scout. He's very good. If this is you right now, ready and eager to learn about trust and safety, I hope that by the end of this presentation, this will be you. Too cool for school, but not too cool for trust and safety, and with your very own set of trust and safety goggles or sunglasses on. So first I want to talk about just a background story. As a young woman who is somewhat knowledgeable about InfoSec and security, I personally try to keep a pretty tight grip on my InfoSec. For example, my GitHub and LinkedIn are pretty public, but my Twitter doesn't have my full last name, and neither does my Facebook. Also, everything that can be set to private pretty much is. When I first graduated college and came out to live in San Francisco, I was completely alone, and therefore a bit more protective of my personal info. But I was also alone and kind of lonely, and so I, for better or worse, joined Tinder. Now, I already knew enough not to connect it with my Facebook, not to connect it with my Instagram, because they offer that to you, and it's not a great idea in terms of privacy, and not to be too specific about where I was living. I was also careful to use profile pictures on Tinder that I did not have on any other account so that you couldn't do like a Google image reverse image search to find my other accounts from my Tinder photos. And so, in fact, I was pretty sure that at least at the time that it was, if not impossible, at least really hard to connect my profile with my other accounts and my greater online identity. Until I met someone who proved me wrong. I'll save you the full story, but the piece that I didn't count on, the piece I hadn't protected against, was my own alma mater, so my college that I just graduated from, their student directory. When I got a message on Facebook and was told how the guy had found me, I was completely shocked that my school would have made that information public. I know that I never would have opted into being included in that directory, and also I was pretty sure that I had actually opted out of it. Thankfully, this particular person meant me no harm, but I lost so much trust in my university and in the world in general that day. That was a really scary day for me as a user and as a woman and as a person. So incidentally, the very next day, I started a job at GitHub where I get to make sure that software, at least for GitHub, gets designed with user safety in mind and with cases like this in mind. I'm so excited to share some of that design process with you today. So first off, I want to talk about trust and safety. I realize I haven't defined the term yet, and I want to, before I really give a definition, I want to situate our work in a wider sort of security stack, hypothetical stack, if you will. So first you have the company, and so they're sort of at the lowest part of this hypothetical security stack. And I think ITsec, from what I've read, protects the company. Then you have sort of the application, you have your data, you have the application, and you have the internet, if you will. And then all of these people, InfoSec, NetSec, AppSec, ProdSec, protect the application, all the interactions that are going on, the interactions between the application and the data. I learned about SQL injection yesterday, etc. Then if you have users, any users of your application at all, or if anything you're writing is exposed to the internet and to the public, you need someone protecting your users as well. And that's us. That's trust and safety. And so the point of me being at this conference and giving this talk here is to hopefully sew that into the rest of the security stack and help you sort of widen what you're looking at when you're reviewing things for safety and security. So let me define what trust and safety is. According to Kenny Shee and What the Heck is Trust and Safety, trust and safety is the foundation to enable unfamiliar or total strangers to treat each other peacefully and fairly. I'm going to pause here for a second. because this is my first main idea. If you're going to take pictures of slides, this is a good one. Just sharing what the field is. It is the foundation to enable all sorts of different folks to interact with each other peacefully and safely on the internet. And I'm going to teach you how we do that. So at GitHub, particularly, our team is called Community and Safety, which you'll notice is not the same as Trust and Safety. It's just one more layer. So not only, you'll see at the bottom, we discourage behavior that is destructive or threatens personal safety, and that's the Trust and Safety side, but we also like to do good things and positive things, and we empower people to grow inclusive and healthy communities around their projects and around their code and stuff like that. So this is my team's mission statement. And let me show you this a bit more graphically. So here's our framework when we're thinking about things. I'll first introduce this framework and then go through each of these ideas in more detail with examples, and that's going to be the structure of the rest of this talk. So we first protect users by identifying and closing out abuse vectors. I'll expand more on this, but essentially an abuse vector is just like a security vulnerability, except it can be used by one user against another to harass, stalk, spam, violate privacy, or in any way that is generally just really mean. So we hope here to, we try to identify these abuse vectors and do our best to protect our users against them. That's the most egregious behavior, the real safety concerns, et cetera. Next, we want to discourage bad behavior. So maybe behavior that isn't really super egregious. I lost my pointer. Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's fine. Maybe behavior that isn't super egregious, but really just behavior that isn't conducive to a healthy community. Often that behavior is defined by community norms and, in our case, maintainers. We discourage this by building tools to surface this behavior to maintainers or the community, and the tools for maintainers to moderate it. We empower maintainers to shape the communities they run on our platform. Finally, we want to encourage good behavior. So not only do we want to protect against the bad stuff, but users behave well sometimes, you know? And so we want to encourage that good behavior. This is sort of the most mature or most further along part of our work, and so I'll explain that at the end, talking about the things that we can do to help sort of thumbs up and positively reinforce the good behavior. So first, I'm going to talk about protecting, the things that we do to protect some of the things. As I said, we protect users by identifying and closing out abuse vectors. Again, abuse vectors are vulnerabilities, not just in the AppSec space, but also vulnerabilities to social engineering, or more often, stalking, spamming, harassing, violating privacy, etc. This is really bad stuff on the internet. It's really negative behavior that can be really, really dangerous, especially for our most vulnerable users, women, people of color, people with disabilities, people that are really in the public eye. So we prioritize this work when it comes up. So first I have an example. Here we go. So this is the GitHub profile page. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but if you haven't, it has some info about me, and then it has some repos that I have contributed to, or that I have pinned. I think I do have to have contributed, but that I've pinned on my repository, or on my profile page. So this is when someone wants to learn about me as a developer, they come here, hopefully. This is really my space to explain like who I am as a developer. So the problem, we have now closed this, but the problem that came up was that originally you could invite anyone you wanted to one of your repositories, and they would just get added. It was not an opt-in process. You just said, hey, I want to invite Scout the dog to my repository, and I click that invite button, and Scout the dog is now added to my repository. And sometimes, if the algorithms did their thing, my repository would then show up right here. So here's a mock that I did, and if you'll notice up in the top corner, someone has an anti-Galaxy has invited me to a repo called I Hate Dogs. You may be able to extrapolate how someone would say much worse things than I hate dogs, especially on, again, someone in sort of the public eye, or really just anyone. So this was actually used on GitHub. People used it to harass other people. They invited them to repos with horrible names and horrible descriptions and put that information on their profile, such that when other people were sort of looking around or came across their profile, it would say that stuff. So this is a good time to introduce the idea of consensual software. Consensual software is basically asking the user's explicit permission to interact with them or their data. This is another big idea slide. This is a framework that was created by Danielle Leong, my manager at GitHub, and Lucas Moore. And the whole thing is giving the user the option, not just to opt out, but when possible, to opt in. So, we talk about consent in our daily lives in all sorts of interactions, and this is consent in software, asking the user's explicit permission whenever you can, really. So what that looks like in this particular example, in repository invites, is an invitation. And so Anti-Galaxy has invited me to collaborate, and now if you use GitHub, you get these. Anti-Galaxy has invited me to collaborate on I hate dogs, and I get this email. And it explicitly says down here what happens if I say yes to that. So owners of I hate dogs, so that's going to be Anti-Galaxy, will see my public profile information, certain activity, the country request origin, my IP address. Like that's kind of pertinent. And so I can accept the invitation, but more importantly, I can decline if I want to. And so that's one example to protect. So then how do we discourage? Again, the discourage part of this framework is just talking about how can we, if it's behavior that's not egregious, not absolutely horrible, but just against the community norms that are set by usually the maintainers of that repository or organization, how can we discourage that behavior? And that usually means building tools that put the power in the hands of the maintainers. And yeah, we discourage bad behavior by building tools to surface it and moderate it, usually to the maintainers or to users. So we give you the tools as a user to block people, etc. So here's a good example. This is, again, one I made up. So Scout the dog has asked, are all dogs good dogs? And I think a lot of people think, oh, on GitHub, they're just talking about code. Like, discussions are never going to be that heated or interesting. Au contraire. And so this is just a fictional example, but Scout has asked, I believe all dogs are good dogs. I think our project on GitHub should reflect this. What do other people think? And Dash the cat, who is, Dash the cat is a cat. He's coming in with a different perspective. But he's saying, like, yeah, this can get complicated, but I'd really like to participate in a good, valid discussion about it. And that's great. We definitely don't want to stop anything like that. But then this happens. So I'll just highlight, this is a wonderful point, and then something went down here. Something happened where we got 384 hidden items, and we do that when there's too many comments to load at the same time. And now all of a sudden we have all these other people coming in. Unix the cat is saying, no, you're a bad kitty. Like, what does that have to do with a good discussion on GitHub? And also a thing that we see is in this is actually called dogpiling. It's great. It is like other people come in. Sometimes people even make new GitHub accounts just to comment. And so this thread came up on Barker, and I came to say you're all wrong. So you have people who are not even a part of the community, not contributing to this project, coming in and talking about things, which is sometimes valid and sometimes really disruptive. And so this is Scout the dog is like, I just stepped away from my computer and I came back to this. Like, what? And then, yeah, here's another screenshot that I made from Barker News, where someone basically is fine with it. They're just really commenting about it, and sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you're just talking. But other times it can bring in people from other places that are really just there to dogpile. So So what we have, one example of things that we have for this is temporary interaction limits. So if a maintainer realizes that, like in this case, if Scout the dog realizes that things have really gotten out of hand, and maybe a Scout still wants to have a good conversation about it, but it's just too heated right now, it's blowing up on the internet, like now is not the time, you can do temporary, you can do temporary interaction limits. So this one's for a 24-hour period, and you can limit it to certain people. So here we have limit to existing users. That's to stop what's called sock puppet accounts. So that stops people from creating new accounts just to continue piling on this issue. Users that have recently created their account will be unable to interact with this repository. You could also say limit it to prior contributors. Say, like, this is a really heated topic. We just want people who are really in our community. And you can do that for 24 hours if you want. And then you can limit it to repository collaborators. So it's like we really want people who are just in the inner sanctum that's probably like maintainers and stuff. We just want to lock it and shut it down to everyone else. You can also, I don't have a screenshot for it, but you can lock the repo, stuff like that, like basically kind of put people in a timeout. And sometimes that's what you need. And so this is what happens. This is, in this case, the conversation has been locked and limited to collaborators, and it says that so that you don't get more people dogpiling, or dogs or cats dogpiling. So that's discourage. And then the final thing that we're able to do, luckily, once we've sort of kicked out all the bad behavior, or most of it, or some of it, is encourage good behavior. And this is where our job is a lot happier. So we encourage good online citizenship by highlighting communities and members that perform it well. So we really want to call out happy times. I'll let you take pictures of that. So this is the community profile. This was built before I got there, but it's been a lot of fun to work with. Basically, my team did loads and loads of research on what parts of what things on GitHub signify a healthy and happy community, or a community that is growing sustainably. And it turns out it's these things. It's a description on the repo, a README, a code of conduct, a contributing document that says, like, this is what people here do, a license, issue templates, and a pull request template. And so each one of these is actually an example. This is an example full of examples. Each one of these is an example of things that we do that when a repo does this, or when maintainers do this, it really encourages good, happy behavior in the community. So here on the community profile, we show basically how many of these things the repo has. This is a screenshot of a repo that doesn't have that many. It only has a README. So we give them sort of some credit. This is a progress bar over here. But the rest of them, we don't ding them necessarily for not having it. We give them a path forward. So here you can add that. You can add a license. And we have wizards, if you will, like adding wizards to. Basically, it takes you step by step through adding a license, and you fill in required information like your email address, I think, and you can add a license, and I think that's pretty cool. We have the same for a code of conduct, because code of conducts are hard sometimes, but there's a lot of prior art on how to do it. So we just have that on a silver platter for you. Yeah, and then there's some other documents and stuff. And then we have a wizard for issue templates as well. And so here's what it looks like if someone has one or two more. You have a license and a description, and now this repo looks a little happier. And then here's a repo that has all of them. And it's like, yes, it has all of them. It has links to each one, so you can go check it out for yourself. It's a good time. Another thing that we have that encourages good behavior is we call out to users in issues and pull requests when it's their first time contributing to the repository. And we say, it looks like this is your first time opening an issue in this project. Be sure to review the contributing guidelines and the code of conduct. And so we really guide people to the tenets of that healthy community that we already have in place. Finally, this is just an example. This is taken from Node.js, obviously, of issue templates. And so when you have these brand new people, we definitely want to welcome new people to a community, or at least communities that are prepared for that do want to welcome new people. But it's nice to have really clear guidelines. So when a new person comes in, you can do a bug report, a feature request. They want to, I think, direct people who just need help with Node to a different repo. Or if they found a problem, you can file an issue there. And then we have open a regular issue if these don't apply to you. But it's really just enforcing good behavior, encouraging good behavior, and helping users, giving users basically a happy path to that good behavior. And so now I'm going to close out the talk with just some like PowerPoints. Oh, PowerPoint. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, building user safety into the foundation of technology we create is everyone's responsibility. So if you've zoned out, zone back in, if you will, please. This is everybody's responsibility, whether you are an engineer, a designer, a product manager, a security person, an ops person. This is something that everybody can look out for and speak up if you see something. So maybe like you don't have the cycles to fix the problem, but if you call it out within your company, maybe someone else has the cycles. Or maybe someone else really cares about this, but they didn't attend this talk, so they don't know how yet. You can share this. I'm really excited to share the recording of this talk, and I'd love to talk more to you about it if you want. And this is sort of the negative side. Any platform or feature can and will be abused. I think a lot of people get really surprised when I say that I work for community and safety at GitHub, because they're like, GitHub? Like that's not a social, what? Like there's trolls on GitHub? Just in source code? Ha 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 ha. You'd be surprised. Or maybe you wouldn't. But yeah, any platform or feature can and will be abused. So I learned in Jim's thing that, and basically any user input is potentially vulnerable to cross-site scripting or SQL injection, et cetera. Any user input that is saved or shown to other users in any way is vulnerable to abuse. Anytime you can type "I hate dogs" into a text box, you can harass someone with it, unfortunately. So it's up to you to help protect against that, or surface ways to deal with it once it's happened. If users don't feel safe on a platform, they will leave. That's the best way to lose users, unfortunately. And also, oh, that's a bad copy paste. The platform may be liable, was supposed to be that word, for abuse that it allows. So GDPR is now out, and now there are laws that are saying you can't do bad things with people's data. And you know, lots of things are coming out about lots of different companies where abuse is happening on the platform, and now what are we going to do about it? This is important. This is like protecting your users is important. So please do it. So then trust and safety in your own work. What are my like key takeaway points for you? How can you really sew this into your own work besides everything else I've said in this presentation? Basically, ask yourself in the beginning, how can this feature or software be used to hurt someone? I think everyone can sort of develop that gut reaction, or maybe ask around. I know people who have experienced bad stuff on the internet are often very aware of how you could use certain features to hurt other people. So it's like valid to ask for help there too. And yeah, just try to, I mean, you all think about abuse, about attack vectors. It's time to add abuse vectors onto that. And then how can we discourage bad behavior in this feature? So if there's bad behavior that you're not straight up gonna block, but like, you know, it's not gonna be great, it's not gonna really help your platform at all, how can you discourage it? And then one more before you take a picture of the slide. How can we encourage good behavior in this feature? So now how can we not only be like, no, you can't do this and that and the other thing, but how can we say, oh, but here's a way to do the right thing? Because people sometimes actually do want to do the right thing. So this is another good picture slide if you want. If you're like me and you have a really hard time learning from talks because there's a lot coming at you and you want to curl up in bed and read instead, go here. These two are the same link. I just noticed people really like Bitly, so I included it. But it's Danielle Leong, that's my manager, / recommended readings, or if you really want to use Bitly, it will just redirect you to there. I'll give you a second. I can also message this or put it in the Slack and stuff like that. And so thank you so much for listening to this talk. This is your community and safety merit badge that you have now earned through listening to this talk. To earn it extra, there will be a abuse vectors workshop on Friday given by my awesome coworker, and you can really start digging into what are abuse vectors and how to identify them, because that's, I think, something that you kind of have to build up, but it is totally buildable. And finally, we're hiring. So if any of this like blew your mind and you're so excited to help protect people on GitHub, you can email Danielle@github.com. That's my manager, and for more information. Thank you so much. The first question is, how are you coping with missing your dogs while you are here? Can you offer me any tips? I actually can. I read in your hotel rooms, there's like a little booklet thing, and of course I read it. And so you can go to the Humane Society of Kauai and take a dog out for the day. And you can just like go around with a dog for the whole day. And then you can adopt them at the end if you want. They said that they adopt about 4 dogs a month out of that program. So I hope that answered your question. Can I archive that or just do that? Nope, okay. Okay. In the I hate dogs example, you still get an invite notification. How do you view the harassment risk for invites? That's a fantastic question. I should have kept my slides up, oh well. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. So you do still get an invite. You can block the person. That's our sort of route. So if someone is harassing you, hopefully it's one person. Well, I mean, hopefully it's not happening at all. But if it's one person, you can block that person, and then you will no longer get invites from that person. Unfortunately, there are still ways around that, but yeah, we doing our best, and I think you can contact us through support, and we've had some solutions to that. It's hard to find all security bugs in-house, and I imagine it's the same for trust and safety. Do you consider encouraging external folks to report those via bug bounties? Yes, actually, we participate in the bug bounty program, just like the security team does. I know I personally have written several that have come back as bug bounties, and it's sad, but I appreciate it a lot. So if you notice stuff like this in GitHub, I would encourage you to report it to our bug bounty program, or other channels that suit you. Contact us is a good way too. And I'm really thankful to people who do that. Have any other social platforms like Twitter started using temporary interaction limits? I know that Facebook has take a break from a person, and I was super impressed when I saw that, especially like, you know, if you, one design, or one user story that we try to design for is the abusive X. And so, you know, if it's an abusive X, you probably want more than a temporary interaction limit. But if it's just an X and you're like, I don't want to block you because I don't have to unblock you, but like, you know, you can take a break from that person, and that is temporary. I'm not sure if Twitter has that. I don't know. How would you recommend security teams provide self-service guidance to engineering teams to help them design new features with this kind of stuff in mind? That's a great question, and that's one that we at our company are also sort of wrestling with, because our company has now scaled a little bit larger than like we can review every single feature. We do have a formal review process for like big features that come out, and unfortunately a lot of it is like internal marketing where we're like, hey, we're Camps, we have this logo, and we have Scout, please remember us because you remember the dog. Like ask us for a review of your feature. And so we just did that for Atom just shipped review comments within Atom, which is super cool. But basically the engineer came to us and they were like, hey, can we talk about all the different ways this can be abused? And it was super productive. So I guess that's not really self-service. I think the other thing is just education. Sharing, you can share this talk, you can share the resources that I shared, and just try to build that culture within your company, which is, you know, hard and stuff. But yeah, I think education and lunch and learns. I gave this talk first to other members of our company, the Octoprentices, to just try to sort of spread the word. So training, education, basically what everyone else has been saying. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening.